Welcome back to the Deep Dive. For Season 8, we're going to be exploring the world of the early church fathers.
Oh, those are some fascinating figures. They really helped shape Christianity, in those very early, very important centuries.
Yeah, these are the folks that were wrestling with some of the biggest questions about who Jesus was, what the church should look like, how to live out the faith.
Heavy stuff.
And to help us navigate this season, we're going to be relying on the research of Andre Mubarak.
Now, he's an Aramaic-speaking Christian and tour guide based in Jerusalem, right?
That's right. He's really dedicated to teaching about the Aramaic roots of the Christian faith, so his insights are going to be really invaluable, I think, as we go through this season.
I'm excited to learn more.
Yeah, and you can find out more about his work on his website. It's www.twinsbiblicalacademy.com. So today we're going to be focusing on a figure who's pretty much synonymous with defending what we consider to be Orthodox Christianity. Athanasius of Alexandria.
Oh, Athanasius. Now, that's a name that carries weight.
This is a man who spent 17 years in exile for his beliefs.
Wow. That just goes to show you how intense these theological debates were back then. This wasn't just like a polite disagreement over a cup of tea.
No, this was about the very essence of who Jesus was, what his relationship to God was. The stakes were incredibly high.
Absolutely, life or death in some cases.
So let's rewind a bit. Let's go back to the beginning. Athanasius was born around 296 AD in Alexandria, Egypt.
Okay. Now, Alexandria at this time was a bustling hub, wasn't it?
Yeah, I've always kind of pictured it as sort of like the New York City of the ancient world.
Yeah. It was this incredibly cosmopolitan city, a major port, ideas and people and goods just flowing through from all over the Roman Empire.
Right, so you can imagine how that environment would shape Athanasius' worldview from an early age. And he was no slouch when it came to learning either. He got a top-notch education, excelled in rhetoric, philosophy, and of course, theology.
Well, that's no surprise. That was the air he was breathing, right? This intellectual kind of ferment of Alexandria, which shaped him deeply.
And during this time, he forms a close relationship with the Bishop of Alexandria, a guy named Alexander. And Alexander was right in the middle of this massive theological controversy. We know it as the Arian controversy.
Ah, yes, the Arian controversy, a real turning point in the early church. This was about the very nature of Jesus Christ, his relationship with God the Father. To understand Athanasius, you really have to understand this debate.
So yeah, let's break that down. What was Arianism and why was it such a big deal?
All right, well, Arianism gets its name from its founder, Arius. And basically, Arius argued that Jesus Christ wasn't co-eternal with God the Father.
Okay, so he wasn't always there with God from the very beginning.
Right. Instead, they believed Jesus was actually created by God, at some point in time. And because of that, he was subordinate to God the Father.
So they're saying, yes, Jesus is divine, but he's not fully God.
That's the gist of it, yeah. And this caused a huge uproar in the church. Think about it. If Jesus wasn't fully God, could he really offer salvation?
Could he really be that bridge between humanity and the divine? Yeah, I can see why this caused so much tension. This wasn't just some minor theological quibble. This was a question that struck at the very heart of Christian belief.
Absolutely. And this is what led to the calling of one of the most important councils in church history, the Council of Nicaea in 325 AD.
Yeah, I've always pictured this as like this really dramatic showdown, right? You've got these opposing factions within the early church. They're all gathered together. It was kind of like that.
Oh, it was a pivotal moment for sure. Imagine Emperor Constantine, he had just recently converted to Christianity, calls together all these bishops from across the entire Roman Empire. They come to this council to try and settle this dispute that was threatening to, just tear the church apart.
Yeah, the Roman Empire is now officially Christian.
Right. So this isn't just a theological debate anymore. It's got huge political implications.
Oh, absolutely. And so enter Athanasius. He's still just a deacon at this point, but he is already making waves. So what's his role in all of this?
Athanasius, even though he was pretty young and, relatively junior in terms of church hierarchy, he emerges as this fierce opponent of Arianism at the council.
Wow.
Yeah, he argues passionately for the full divinity of Christ, really goes toe-to-toe with these big names in the church.
So he's not even a bishop yet. He's just a deacon. And he's already playing this key role on this massive stage.
That's right. He's got this incredible intellect, a deep understanding of Scripture, and just a real passion for defending what he believes to be the truth about Jesus.
So what happened? What was the outcome of this showdown at Nicaea? Did they manage to settle the debate?
Well, the council ends up condemning Arianism, and they declare that Christ is, get ready for this word, homoousios, with God the Father.
Homoousios. Oh.
It's a mouthful, but it means of the same essence.
Oh, okay. So it's not just that Jesus is like God, but he is of the same substance as God the Father.
Exactly. And this becomes like the cornerstone of the Nicene Creed, which, many churches still recite today.
Talk about a lasting impact. But I have a feeling, though, that this wasn't quite the end of the story, was it?
Oh, no, not by a long shot. The Arian controversy, it didn't just disappear overnight. It continued to kind of simmer and cause all sorts of division in the church for decades.
And Athanasius, I'm assuming, he became kind of a target because of his unwavering defense of the Nicene Creed.
Oh, he became public enemy number one for a lot of people.
Yeah.
His staunch stance on the divinity of Christ just made him a lightning rod for all that tension and conflict that was still swirling around this debate.
Right. So this is where those 17 years of exile come in, right? 5 exiles, 5. What were they accusing him of, and where did these exiles take him?
Well, the accusations were all over the place. They accused him of violence, sorcery, even meddling in the Egyptian grain supply.
Wow. That's quite a range.
Right. It's pretty clear that a lot of these accusations were, well, how do we say it nicely? Trumped up, politically motivated.
Right. They just wanted to find a way to silence him, get him out of power.
Exactly. And those exiles, they took him all over the place. He spent time in Trier in what's now Germany. He was in Rome. And significantly, he spent a lot of time in the deserts of Egypt, among the desert monks.
The desert monks. Wow. That's a pretty dramatic change of scenery. How'd that experience shape him?
Oh, his time among the desert monks, it was transformative, It wasn't just about survival out there in the desert, but it was about immersing himself in their way of life, their radical commitment to prayer and simplicity.
So it deepened his own spiritual life, his understanding of what it means to follow Christ.
Yeah, absolutely. But it wasn't just a period of hiding out. He was actually pretty active during this time. He built alliances, he wrote some of his most important works, and, he just continued to gain even deeper insights into the Christian faith.
So even in exile, he's making moves. That's amazing.
He was unstoppable, truly a force to be reckoned with.
So tell me more about these writings then. What were some of the key works that came out of this period and what makes them so significant?
Well, one that really stands out is On the Incarnation. He wrote that as a young man, even before the Council of Nicaea.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's a powerful defense of Christ's divinity. And he explores, why God chose to become human.
That's a pretty big question.
Yeah, it's a foundational text in Christian theology, and it really showcases Athanasius's deep theological thinking, even at that early stage.
On the Incarnation. Okay, I'm adding that to my reading list.
Yeah.
But it wasn't all, smooth sailing for Athanasius even after Nicaea. It sounds like the Arian controversy was just like a constant thorn in his side.
Oh, yeah. It really dominated those early years, of his bishopric. He was constantly facing opposition from Arian bishops, their political allies. And, those exiles, they were a testament to that struggle.
Yeah, it must have been exhausting. But even with all that turmoil, he still managed to write so much, especially during his exiles. What else did he produce?
Another really important work from that period is Against the Arians.
Against the Arians?
Yeah, it's it's actually a multi-volume treatise where he systematically refutes Arian theology.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, really defending the eternal sonship of Christ and the unity of the Trinity.
So if someone wanted to, really get into the nitty-gritty of that debate, Against the Arians is where they should go.
Absolutely, yeah. If you want to go deep, that's the deep end of the pool right there.
Perfect. But it wasn't just these, major theological works. He also wrote a series of festal letters, right?
Yeah, right. These were annual letters that he sent out to the churches under his care. Touched on, all sorts of theological and practical matters.
Kind of like pastoral letters, I guess.
In a way, yeah. They really offer this, fascinating glimpse into the life and concerns of the early church.
It's amazing that we have these letters. It's like, getting this firsthand look at the challenges, the triumphs of a bishop in the 4th century. It reminds us that these theological debates, they weren't just abstract ideas. They had real-world implications for how people lived and understood their faith.
Oh, absolutely. And one of those festal letters, the 39th letter from 367 AD, is particularly significant.
Oh, why is that?
Well, it contains the first known list of the 27 books of the New Testament.
Wait, the 27 books? The same as our New Testament today.
Identical to the canon we use today, yeah.
Wow. So, like, when I open my Bible, I'm essentially reading the same books that Athanasius identified as authoritative, like way back in the 4th century.
You got it. I mean, it just highlights the role he played in shaping what we even consider to be scripture.
That is wild. But his influence extends beyond just these, theological and canonical matters. He also had a profound impact on the development of monasticism, right?
That's right. I mean, how could we forget about his biography of St. Anthony the Great, The Life of Anthony? This book really introduced the world to those early desert monks and their radical commitment to, like, a life of prayer and solitude.
Right. Those desert fathers, they were pretty intense. But, I've always wondered, didn't his own experiences in exile, like finding refuge among those monks, shape his perspective on this way of life?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, those years spent in the desert gave him firsthand insight into, the challenges and rewards of that kind of monastic life. It wasn't just about hiding, it was about a deeper commitment. It deepened his own spiritual life and gave him a real appreciation for that monastic path.
So through the life of Anthony, he's not just telling a story, he's advocating for a way of life, a particular model of Christian discipleship.
Yeah, and it obviously resonated with people. I mean, it became like a bestseller. It popularized monasticism, particularly in the West. It captured the imaginations of, Christians all across the Roman Empire.
They're drawn to Anthony's example, I guess.
Oh, yeah, they were, drawn to that asceticism, that prayer, the spiritual warfare. It was all very compelling.
It's fascinating to see how Athanasius's own life experiences, his theological convictions and his writing, how they all kind of intertwine to influence the course of Christian history. So we see his impact on Christology, the Trinity, the canon of Scripture, and even monasticism. It's incredible how one person could have such a far-reaching legacy.
Yeah, and all of that despite facing like constant opposition and spending 17 years in exile. I mean, the guy was a man of unwavering conviction.
Which is why he earned the nickname Athanasius contra mundum, Athanasius against the world.
That's a pretty good nickname, huh?
Yeah, very fitting. But, it's one thing to admire his tenacity. It's another to understand why he's still relevant today. I mean, what lessons can we as 21st century Christians glean from his life and writings? Why should we care about a bishop who lived, over 1,600 years ago?
Well, it feels like we live in a time where, truth is constantly being debated and redefined, And so to see someone like Athanasius, stand so firm in his convictions, even when it cost him, so much. I mean, that's inspiring.
It really is.
Yeah.
His life is just this powerful reminder that truth matters and that it's worth fighting for, even when it's, it's unpopular, maybe even dangerous.
Yeah, it's easy to just go along with the crowd, But Athanasius shows us that sometimes you gotta stand your ground.
Yeah. And it's not just about, blind faith or dogma. I mean, Athanasius was really engaged in deep theological reflection, doc debate. And he was able to articulate his beliefs in a way that was both clear and really compelling.
We've talked about, some of his major works like On the Incarnation and Against the Arians, but are there any specific insights from those writings that you think speak to us today? There are so many, but one that comes to mind is from On the Incarnation. Athanasius argues that, God became human in Jesus Christ to redeem humanity from, sin and death. And he uses this beautiful analogy of a great artist restoring a damaged painting.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, just as the artist doesn't just create a new painting, but rather restores the original, to its former beauty, so too does God, through the Incarnation, restore humanity to its intended state of communion with him.
It's such a powerful image, It just makes this complex theological concept so much more accessible, And it reminds us that the Incarnation wasn't just some abstract theological idea. It was about God entering into the messiness of human experience, heal and restore us.
Exactly. And Athanasius, he was a master of using these metaphors and everyday examples to, explain these profound theological truths. He understood that theology wasn't just for, academics, it was for everyone.
It had to connect with people's lives, right?
Absolutely.
We've also talked about Against the Arians, his comprehensive refutation of Arianism. What stands out to you from that work?
I mean, in that work, he really dives deep into the nuances of that whole debate over Christ's divinity.
Right.
He meticulously dismantles the arguments of Arius and his followers. He defends the full divinity and eternal sonship of Christ. I mean, it's a dense work. But if you want to understand The heart of that controversy and how it shaped Christian thought against the Arians is its essential reading.
So it's not just a historical artifact. It's still relevant for understanding how these early debates continue to shape our understanding of Christ even today.
100%. Yeah. I mean, those debates are still going on in some ways, you know? And then there are his festal letters, which, they offer a fascinating window into the life and concerns of the early church. I mean, they cover a range of topics, everything from church discipline to the celebration of Easter to the interpretation of scripture. It's amazing.
It sounds like, they were a combination of like pastoral guidance, theological reflection, and even a bit of personal correspondence.
Yeah. They really give you a sense of Athanasius as a leader, as a pastor, not just, this theologian in an ivory tower.
Right.
And of course, we can't forget his life of Anthony. Not only tells the story of, Anthony's remarkable life, but also offers deep insights into the nature of, temptation, the power of prayer, the pursuit of holiness. I mean, it's still a really popular book today.
Yeah. It's fascinating how all of these writings, right, spanning different genres and purposes, came from the same pen. They all reflect, Athanasius's deep faith and his commitment to articulating the truths of Christianity. But ultimately, what do you think is like his most enduring legacy? Why should his story matter to us today?
I think for me, his life just demonstrates the power of conviction, and the importance of engaging in theological debate, and not just, for the sake of argument, but for the sake of truth. I mean, he understood that our beliefs have real world consequences, and he was willing to stand up for what he believed was true, even when it meant facing exile, slander, opposition.
Yeah, his story is a call to courage, to integrity, and to a deep engagement with our faith. I mean, it reminds us that theology isn't just an academic exercise. It's about wrestling with the big questions of life. And it has the power to shape our understanding of ourselves, the world and our place in it. Athanasius's unwavering defense of the divinity of Christ, I mean, it shapes the course of Christian history and continues to impact our understanding of God today. What would the church look like today if Athanasius hadn't so fiercely defended his beliefs? How would our understanding of Jesus be different? These are questions worth pondering as we reflect on his life and legacy.
He definitely left an indelible mark on Christianity. And as we continue our journey through, the lives of these early church fathers this season, we're going to see how, their struggles, their insights, their unwavering faith, help to shape the Christianity we know today. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive.
Until next time, keep exploring and keep the conversation going.